So there may be help afoot. We'll tell you more very, very shortly. But now, I just want to talk, it's Mental Health Awareness Week this week. And now we're going to talk about food. Now, I don't know about you, but if anything, I like comfort food. So if anything's going bad or if I've had a tough day, usually it's get the chocolate biscuits open when I get home or something like that, or go to the chip shop or something. Now, we've all heard the phrase comfort food, but are we grabbing the right food out of the cupboards to give us that lift when we are having a tough time? Well, as part of Mental Health Awareness Week, a nutrition and health expert from Birmingham says what we put in our mouths can have a big impact on how we feel. Let's speak now to Juggy Sidhu, who's on the show. Morning, Juggy.
Morning, and thank you for having me on this morning.
Oh, no, thanks for coming on, mate. Now, so what difference can eating healthily have, then, on our mental well-being?
It's actually amazing just how much of an impact our food and what we consume impacts our mental health. And I think there's so many links towards this that when you start to delve into it, you start to realise just how powerful nutrition is. I mean, for example, if we look at blood glucose fluctuations through the course of the day, when people are feeling irritable, when people are feeling down, they often put it down to the stress they might be experiencing from work. But say you've had, the biscuits that you've just mentioned there, we always tend to have a bit of a fluctuation in our blood glucose afterwards. So when you have a drop, you start to feel a bit irritable, you start to feel a little bit more annoyed, small things start to impact you more than they should, and then that can contribute to your mental well-being and your mental health. But on another side, our gut health has a major driver to something called serotonin. So have you heard of serotonin, by the way?
Yes, it releases serotonin when you're happy, doesn't it? For instance, the happy sort of,
Exactly. Serotonin being that happy neurotransmitter, and 90% of it actually exists in our gut. So you can imagine the food that we're feeding ourselves, the impact that would have on our gut health. And if we haven't got 90% of it actually available to us to use, then that's going to impact our happiness, which we usually experience within our mind. So it's just incredible to think how much the food that we eat can actually impact things like gut health.
What should we be eating, Juggy? Come on, tell me. What should I be eating then to keep me on an even keel?
Think about this as well. Serotonin also impacts things like sleep. So again, when we don't sleep well, we tend to choose foods that aren't exactly aligned to health because we're trying to give ourselves a bit of a reward and a bit of gratification. So the easiest thing to do when it comes to managing your nutrition is obviously stepping back from processed foods. It's the easiest thing to start with. But obviously, if we consider it from this perspective, when you're highly stressed, when you're highly emotive, when you're experiencing depression and anxiety, you're not likely to reach out for an apple or some broccoli.
You're more likely to reach out for
you're more likely to reach out for comfort foods or alcohol, which will then obviously complete the loop and continue the loop. So I really do think it's really more important to think about, well, how do you manage emotions? How do you manage the stress? Building in better coping mechanisms for that, because then that's going to give you the opportunity and the energy back to decide, well, what's the best food for me? So I think it's almost taking a step back and looking at psychology first and the way that you manage your emotion, because actually that's going to be a huge driving factor behind the choices that you make towards nutrition. But if I was going to give you some broad strokes here around food, I would definitely say start to increase your protein intake. So maybe instead of having the biscuits after a tough day at work, just switch it out to a protein bar for now. I think that would be a good driver, because then that's going to keep your blood glucose levels a little bit more stable. If we can pull back on some of the processed foods, the sugars, the alcohols, again, that's going to have an impact on your mental well-being. And try and get a good night's sleep. So don't have caffeine after 12 o'clock. I know that's quite a tough one for a lot of people, but cut your caffeine after 12 o'clock so you can actually get a good night's sleep. They would be my three major things to work on.
So it's that correlation, healthy mind, healthy body, and it's all to do what we eat. Really interesting. Thank you, Juggy. That's Juggy Sidhu, who's a nutritionist and health expert, speaking to us there on BBC Radio WM. So if you've changed your diet over the last,